Let's unpack this. The world of AI is definitely buzzing right now.
It really is.
Some significant shifts happening,
Yeah.
particularly coming out of OpenAI.
Yeah, some big moves.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into two major things. Well, a pretty interesting U-turn on their governance plans, and also a headline-grabbing acquisition.
Both very significant.
Yeah, we've been looking closely at the recent news, the reports, trying to piece it all together for you. Our mission here, really, is to understand the why. Why these decisions? What kind of ripple effects could they have?
And what does it signal, about where AI development is heading
Wait.
and the competition, too?
Exactly. What's fascinating right away, I think, is seeing a company that started with such a very strong initial mission,
Right, the nonprofit ideal.
navigating these intense pressures.
Yeah.
Hypergrowth, fierce competition. It's a real balancing act.
It is. And these two developments, the governance and the acquisition, they really highlight that tension, don't they?
Absolutely. So let's get right into the governance situation first. Back in 2019, many will remember, OpenAI started as a nonprofit. Then they set up this for-profit arm,
The capped profit entity, they called it.
right, to attract investment. And Microsoft jumped in early as a big backer.
A very big backer.
Then, fast forward to just last December 2024, the plan then was to transition that for-profit part into a public benefit corporation, a PBC.
Right, the PBC structure. And the thinking there, as we understood it, was trying to bridge that gap, wasn't it?
How so?
Well, allow profit generation, which that they obviously need for the huge costs of research,
Yeah.
but also legally require them to think about the wider societal impact. Keep some connection to the original mission.
Seemed like a way to maybe unlock more capital without totally ditching those founding principles.
Potentially, yeah, it looks like a compromise.
Right, but then the plot thickened.
It did. A reversal.
We now know OpenAI is actually sticking with its original nonprofit parent structure, retaining control. So what happened? What drove this change of heart? Sounds like quite a bit of pressure.
Oh, definitely. The reports we've seen point to significant scrutiny from civic leaders, for one,
Okay.
and also inquiries from the attorneys general, both California and Delaware.
Really? What were their concerns?
The core issue seemed to be about resources and influence. Would the nonprofit arm still get enough funding?
Ah.
And would a stronger profit motive lead to, too much corporate influence over OpenAI's direction, kind of undermining the benefit humanity part?
And then there's Elon Musk. We can't forget him.
No, his lawsuit made headlines.
A co-founder from the early days. His argument basically was that going more for-profit was a betrayal
Right.
of that original nonprofit promise.
Pretty much, yeah. That it deviated fundamentally from benefiting humanity. And reports also mention former employees voicing similar concerns. Opposition from within, or at least from former insiders.
That is another layer.
These are really fundamental questions, aren't they? When you think about the scale of this technology, that tension between needing massive funding for AI research, which is incredibly expensive,
Astronomical costs.
and wanting to prioritize broad societal good over just pure financial return, it's a huge challenge for the whole AI field, not just OpenAI.
So all that pressure from civic leaders, AGs, Musk, former employees, it clearly forced a major rethink.
Seems that way, yes. A significant reevaluation of those PBC plans.
Okay, so with that context, what does this new setup actually look like? The for-profit LLC becomes a PBC, we know that.
Right.
But the nonprofit parent stays in charge and becomes a major shareholder.
Yes, that's the key part. Sam Altman put out a statement saying this structure lets them make services widely available, but also ensures AI benefits everyone.
And Brett Taylor.
He described it as being extremely close to the current structure, which is interesting phrasing.
Extremely close. What does that signal, do you think? Keeping control with the nonprofit.
Well, it strongly suggests they want the ultimate strategic direction, the oversight, to remain firmly within that nonprofit framework by making the nonprofit a major shareholder in the new PBC. That gives it a significant stake in the financial success.
So the money flows back.
Presumably, yeah. It allows resources generated by the for-profit side to be funneled back to support the broader nonprofit mission. It's like trying to get the flexibility of a PBC for business stuff, but keeping the mission control at the top.
A hybrid approach, really. Now, the money, let's talk financials. This reversal, it must complicate things, right? Like that huge SoftBank funding round we heard about. $40 billion?
Yeah, that's a big one. Reports suggested that $40 billion was kind of contingent on OpenAI going fully for profit by the end of 2024.
And now they're not, so...
So SoftBank now reportedly has an option to reduce their contribution.
Ah, okay, so it puts a question mark over that massive investment.
It certainly does. Now, Altman has said SoftBank doesn't plan to freeze the funding.
But the option is there.
Exactly. It highlights how delicate this balance is. Investors, understandably, they usually want a clear path to big returns.
In a nonprofit-controlled PBC, even without the old profit caps,
Yeah.
it might seem less straightforward than a pure for-profit play.
It might, less predictable, perhaps, from a purely financial return perspective.
But on the flip side, as you said, the PBC structure does remove those earlier limits on investor returns.
That's the other part of the equation, yes. So even with the nonprofit control, the potential upside for investors is technically uncapped now.
So they're trying to thread a very fine needle here.
Yeah.
What's the reaction been? Is everyone happy with this compromise?
Not quite. It's mixed. Some critics who were worried about the profit focus seem, let's say, cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously.
But there's still plenty of scrutiny. Paige Headley, who follows this closely, was quoted saying, "Crucial questions remain."
Like what kind of questions?
Well, for instance, Elon Musk's lawyer stated they are not dropping the lawsuit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They argue that critical details about how much ownership the nonprofit actually has in the PBC are still obscured, not transparent enough.
So the fight isn't over. Even though OpenAI says this new structure works for their mission, there are still big unanswered questions about the details and the long-term effects.
Precisely. Transparency seems to be a key ongoing concern for some.
Okay. Let's shift gears then. Big topic number 2, the acquisition.
Windsurf, formerly Codium.
Right. This is reportedly around $3 billion, making it OpenAI's largest acquisition ever. Though, important note, the deal is agreed, but not officially closed yet.
Still, a massive signal. It really shows OpenAI broadening its strategy, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, they're not just about the foundational AI models anymore. They're clearly looking to build out a whole AI ecosystem, and jumping into the AI coding assistant market like this is a prime example.
Exactly. The strategy seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
Boost their muscle in AI-driven coding help.
It's a hot market.
Very competitive. You got Anthropic, Microsoft's GitHub Copilot, already making waves.
So buying Windsurf gives them the tech, obviously, but also insights, right?
Yeah.
Into how developers are actually using these tools day to day. Real-world data.
In Windsurf itself, it sounds pretty impressive. Reports say it generates, on average, something like 45% of a developer's code.
Yeah, that's a significant number. Imagine integrating that level of coding assistance directly into OpenAI's offerings. That could be a serious competitive edge.
Plus, Windsurf apparently focused on things like security, compliance, scalability.
Which are crucial for big enterprise clients, Fortune 500 companies.
Right. So it could be a bridge into more B2B relationships for OpenAI.
Definitely opens doors there.
And Windsurf wasn't exactly unknown. They were already seen as a rising star, integrating with lots of different IDEs, supporting over 70 languages.
And their valuation reflected that. $1.25 billion just last year, apparently.
And they were talking to big VCs like Kleiner Perkins and General Catalyst at that $3 billion valuation before OpenAI stepped in.
So OpenAI likely paid a premium, but saw huge strategic value.
If you look at this as part of OpenAI's whole story, it really marks that shift, doesn't it? From nonprofit lab to, well, a tech giant making major acquisitions.
Absolutely. It's happening alongside all that massive funding, that $40 billion round we mentioned, valuing OpenAI at, what, $300 billion?
Incredible number.
Their goal seems to be building this comprehensive AI ecosystem. Foundational models, developer tools, who knows what else. They've secured billions already, $6.6 billion, confirmed with Microsoft, NVIDIA, SoftBank involved.
It's a very dynamic market, though. These AI coding tools, lots of players jumping in. AnySphere's Cursor is another name you hear.
Right. So acquiring Windsurf looks like a calculated move to stay ahead, strengthen their position with developers.
And it's interesting thinking about GitHub Copilot, their partnership with Microsoft.
Yes.
Windsurf reportedly has these agentic workflows, more automated sort of end-to-end task handling.
Ah, okay, so that could be the differentiator.
It could allow OpenAI to launch its own, maybe more powerful standalone rival to Copilot, even though they provide the model for Copilot.
That's a fascinating dynamic. Using Windsurf's agentic capabilities to potentially compete more directly with their own partner's product built on their own tech.
Complex relationships.
Very. It shows they want deeper integration, perhaps more control over the end user experience in the coding domain.
And just to underline the scale here.
Yeah.
Beyond this acquisition, beyond the funding rounds, OpenAI's projected revenue. Reports suggest $12.7 billion in 2025.
Oh,
They have their own startup fund, investing in other AI companies. That huge $11.9 billion deal with CoreWeave for cloud compute.
massive infrastructure needs.
And we had to mention Project Stargate. That reported almost unbelievable $500 billion joint venture, Oracle, SoftBank, MGX involved, building some giant AI infrastructure system, maybe with the U.S. government.
Yeah, the scale is just staggering. It shows they're thinking way beyond just algorithms. They're building the whole stack, the infrastructure, acquiring key pieces like Windsurf. It's a long-term play to control significant parts of the future AI landscape.
It really underscores how central AI is becoming to software development and the whole tech industry. This is a strategic effort to shape that future.
No question.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. Key takeaways. We've got OpenAI deciding to keep nonprofit control at the top, navigating all that external pressure.
A significant choice given the alternatives they were considering.
And at the same time, making a huge bet on the AI coding market with this planned Windsurf acquisition.
A very assertive move into a specific application area.
Ultimately, what we're seeing here, it really throws that core tension into sharp relief, doesn't it?
It does. That ongoing struggle to balance the original mission, benefiting humanity, with the realities of needing to be commercially viable, fiercely competitive in this incredibly fast-moving AI world.
Which really leads us to the final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Considering these moves, the governance backtrack, the big acquisition, what do you think the most significant long-term implications are?
Yeah, where is this heading? For the direction of AI development overall, and for its accessibility.
And maybe who ultimately benefits most from these incredibly powerful AI advancements that are unfolding so rapidly? Lots to think about there.